It's turned into a long-running saga to find a suitable alternative to park inner-city buses. The lease on Parnell Place runs out early next year. A number of suggestions have already been dumped. Council is considering yet another option. The latest proposal features 3 new areas where buses will terminate. Vehicles will move from Scott Street along Pacific, then continue the route to Ocean Street, along Shortland Esplanade, then make their way back to Scott Street via Sarah Street. But some residents argue the suggested route will mean disaster for nearby businesses, with the loss of dozens of parking spots.
Everybody thinks it's, I hate to use the word crazy, but it just doesn't seem possible.
Given the narrow width of Ocean Street, Mr Jenkins believes the route will be dangerous for both motorists and pedestrians.
Cars come down blind with the big wall at the hospital, and the people coming out of the street here are always startled. You ask anyone who lives in Tyrrell Towers, they watch it every day for entertainment.
Today, Newcastle Buses confirmed it's backing the latest plan and believes there'll be no rush to vacate the existing premises when the lease expires. Residents have until the end of the week to comment on the matter. Melinda Smith, NBN News. Since the University Council first suggested a year ago it planned to drop the lease on the Hunter Area Health Service building, Irene Hall has become the centre of a sometimes rowdy battle. But despite efforts by students and negotiations with the landlord, the university's council has decided to cut its losses of nearly $1 million. It's also cited concerns about the fire safety standard of the building and the potential of major disruptions to fix the problem, and argues there's an emerging trend suggesting a fall in demand for student residential accommodation.
Well, maybe they know something that we don't, but I just can't see it. I mean, we've had more people in the place this year than the 2 previous years that we were open, and I just can't see that. That's nonsense, you know.
Around 15 staff members will lose their jobs. Students claim they're not the only ones who'll suffer.
You can take 200 students out of the CBD in one fell swoop, and you can just imagine what's going to happen. I mean, you know, shops are just going to lose business left, right and centre.
Hunter Area Health Service Chief Dr Tim Smythe today said he was disappointed by the decision. While the building would be on the market by Christmas, he hoped a new owner would keep it operating as a student residence. Meanwhile, nearby work is underway to upgrade fire protection measures for the Royals Nixon wing. $650,000 is being spent, including the construction of a new external fire escape.
It was the last day for people who don't use the services of an accountant to lodge their tax returns. Staff at Newcastle Tax Office were kept busy processing returns from across northern New South Wales.
About 70% of people are now using the services of a tax agent, but it still leaves a significant number who do have to lodge their returns by today.
The Deputy Tax Commissioner says people should try not to get behind with lodging their returns.
We found during the amnesty of a few years ago that people hadn't lodged returns for 20 or more years, and because they got 1 year behind, they were a bit afraid of what to do.
For those who haven't submitted previous returns, the message is simple.
If you do get behind, then by all means come and see us and we can help you.
People who get their tax returns in can expect to have them back within 2 months. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Tackling simple tasks can be challenging at Newcastle Public Special School. But many are quick to learn, and for those aged between 15 and 18, a special program is providing an opportunity to gain skills needed for the workforce. This group is one of the first to take part in the scheme. Every week, students carry out their jobs in the processing plant alongside other Steggles employees. They're in charge of salad preparation, and the boss is happy.
They have a sense of achievement, and we enjoy having them. They certainly help us, yes.
Students who've left school can also be involved. So far, the results have been encouraging.
The students' self-esteem, their confidence and their skills have improved. They've picked up skills that they didn't have before.
But help from businesses is needed.
Anybody out there who would like to give us a go, we're willing to come in. The students are supervised all the time while they're working.
Newcastle Public will hold a special information meeting at the school tomorrow night. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
There's the light. They're off. Great start to the roar of the crowd. And Quick Ransom on the inside was one of the first to jump out with Sweet Glory and out Pompeii. And Gossip's in behind them going forward, followed by here that Bell and Oppressor. And Alcover's prominent as they come down the straight the first time, being followed closely by River Verdun. Deeper on the track then is Pindy, and over on the outside, Gold Sovereign is going up in a hurry. They're followed by Jeune. Coachwood is in behind them. Top rating now over on the rails, being followed by Paris Lane and Double Tiger. Air Seattle just in behind them, followed by Tail Bell, being tracked up there by Vintage Crop. A length and a half further back is Major Decision. Glastonbury is second last, and Clifton Gale is last of all. Racing down the straight the first time, Gold Sovereign the leader by a length and a half. Sweet Glory on the inside of Oppressor. Out three deep as Alcove as they pass the stands. They're followed by River Verdun on the outside of Quick Ransom. Tail Bell followed by our Pompeii and Pindy. A length further back as Gossips on the rails. Double Take Jeune. They're followed by Coachwood. 1.5 Grass Valley on the inside of Hear That Bell. Going out of the straight, four deep as Vintage Crop. He's very wide, followed by Air Seattle. Top rating is parked away on the inside. Paris Lane's got a long way out of his ground. He's running about fifth last as they go along the riverside, being followed by Impala.
Aiming to make the country the tidiest place to live by the year 2000, Clean Up Australia is getting its message across loud and clear. With the help of the RTA, the truck tour is visiting schools across the state, encouraging students to reduce the amount of rubbish being dumped along roads and in schools. Students at Thornton Primary agreed to take up the challenge, wasting no time in cleaning up their playground.
Let's go.
Frank Cooney donned a cap he hadn't worn for almost 30 years today to launch his book Handing Out Change. Although starting his adult life as a swaggy, unemployed and facing a bleak future during the 1920s depression, Frank finally found work as a conductor, then a driver of a tram similar to this one at the Newcastle Tram Museum. He wrote his book as a message to young people not to despair at the current job situation, after being urged to by former Federal Minister Kim Beazley Sr.
He said, "I think you ought to put it down, Frank," he said, "because it'll be a social record, for one thing." He said, and another thing, he said, "I know it's a spiritual odyssey as far as you're concerned, and I think that you have the answer to despair of young."
Frank's colourful career path also took him onto the vaudeville stage. A first-time writer, there was more than enough to write about. Frank says he had to throw away chapters.
There was great fanfare earlier this year when plans to revitalise the mall were released. 4 areas were addressed, which included 2 rail line crossings linking shops to the harbour foreshore. But plans changed. The crossings have been dropped, council voting to put the focus on developing markets and kiosks by providing $50,000 for a feasibility study.
We were bogging down in focusing on the at-rail crossings rather than on the issues which we needed to address in getting the plan going. Without moving forward on the crossings, we could not move forward anywhere else. So the easiest way was to get rid of them altogether.
According to the City Centre's new chairman, the fate of the rail line and future mall developments will be decided at next year's state election. Regardless of the outcome, the City Centre Committee plans to forge ahead. However, last night's council decision to back the latest plan failed to gain full support. 3 independent councillors voted against the move. Councillor John Tate argues the revised plan is being rushed through and claims council is being manipulated.
It's really just part of what I see as a hidden agenda by elements of the City Centre Committee and perhaps the Lord Mayor who want to see the railway line terminated at the Civic.
Meanwhile, inner city skateboard riders and inline skaters will soon have their own area to be built at a cost of nearly $130,000. Council has given the go-ahead for stage 1 of a new skateboard park at South Newcastle Beach. Work is expected to get underway early next year. Located side by side in Lehman Street, Newcastle's cultural buildings are struggling to cope with the demand. Every year, around 50,000 people visit the art gallery. Nearly 1 million use the library.
There are enormous problems. From our customers' perspectives, we have extremely congested study and research spaces. We have accommodation in terms of, I guess, our information resources. We're bursting at the seams.
If there was a picture not on display that someone wanted to see, we could go to the storage room and they all have racks and you could just pull out a rack. Well, we're now bulging at the seams that we really can't do that. We have to lift out pictures and so on to get it perhaps the one they want.
Managers Chris Williams and David Bradshaw believe they've hit on a solution to their problems. By joining forces, they're hoping to come up with a plan allowing for a joint expansion. Suggestions include interconnecting corridors, additional storage and exhibition space, a theatrette, even a restaurant. And they're calling for more ideas. A public meeting is being held tomorrow night at the Art Gallery.
The Hunter Eagles have had a mixed start in their debut season, splitting their first game against the Sydney Blues 2 apiece, then last weekend going down 3-1 to the Melbourne Monarchs. The Melbourne result could well have been reversed, with the Eagles losing 2 of their 4 games by only 1 run. Coach Gomer Hodge believes poor defence, which gave the opposition some cheap runs, cost the Eagles dearly.
The defensive part needs work, and it's really the simple things, just catching the ball and throwing the ball to the right bases.
Coach Hodge had some of the team out for batting practice today in preparation for the side's first road trip, which takes them to Perth this weekend. Perth is a tough assignment. The side is rated one of the best in the 9-team competition. Despite this, Hodge hopes to win 2 of the 4 games.
Then we got Everett Stoll pitching the first game, and from the last start he pitched 7 innings and just give up 2 runs, and if he can do that over there, we got a chance to win.
The Eagles will play 2 double headers on Friday night and Saturday. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
It's a surprising revelation. According to the Anti-Discrimination Board, young people are being prejudiced against in seeking rental properties in the Newcastle area.
I think a lot of real estate agents just work on the basis of saying that they're going to make some arbitrary figure that everybody who's sort of over the age of 25 is going to be a good tenant and anybody who's under the age of 25 is going to be a suspect tenant.
President of the Anti-Discrimination Board, Chris Public, who's hoping to stamp out the problem, was in Newcastle today. Complaints from young people have more than doubled since legislation came in 2 months ago, making it illegal to discriminate against someone because of their age. The Real Estate Institute has denied any wrongdoings. A spokesperson said the Institute is very aware of anti-discrimination laws. He says agents take on the best applicants for rental properties, and that has nothing to do with age. However, the Newcastle University Student Association says discrimination is a major problem. The association is setting up a program to advise students on their rights in renting. Chris Public says if agents are caught, he can refer their case to the Equal Opportunity Tribunal, where they can be given heavy fines.
The court can impose penalties which include going up to fines of $40,000.
grower was unloading cotton from the semi-trailer at about 8 o'clock this morning when the vehicle began to tip on a slight slope. As he felt the heavy vehicle give way, the man tried to jump clear but was pinned by his ankles. Emergency workers managed to free him after almost an hour. He was stabilised at the scene and transferred to Warrialda Hospital, suffering a dislocated shoulder and crush injuries to his legs. He was later transferred to Tamworth Base Hospital. Joanne Shoebridge, NBN News.
They gathered early for last night's meeting, objectors led by Colin Maybury and supporters urged on by developer Garbus Simonian. Previous meetings have been almost hijacked by the vocal protest group. Last night, Mayor Marie Callaghan took a stand. With the meeting resumed, the real issue was addressed, whether or not to rescind an earlier motion supporting in principle the idea of a dross plant for curry. Councillors in turn spoke of why they were taking the stand they were. Councillor Jeff Maybury criticising the tactics of the action group led by his brother Colin.
There has been so much mistruths, outright lies and low-down mongrel tactics used in this campaign.
However, there were those councillors who supported the protesters, the final vote in their favour. But instead of conveying its objection to the proposal, Council voted to have no stance on the issue. It will now be up to the Department of Planning to decide if the plant goes ahead. Meanwhile, the region's 2 aluminium smelters will be asked to answer 21 dross-related questions.
Having resolved to find out more about dross, Cessnock councillors today inspected the Alcan aluminium plant at Curry. When aluminium is made, a byproduct is created called dross. Dross must be further processed to recover the rest of the aluminium. That process is done at several recycling plants around the country. Each week, Alcan trucks about 4 loads of dross to the Affinity Metals plant in the western suburbs of Sydney.
For at least the last 10 years it has been operating within the licence conditions that have been set by the EPA, and that it hasn't been the subject of any major concern or any significant complaints from local residents.
Alcan manager Richard Yank concedes that when wet or hot, dross can give off ammonia-like fumes which cause irritation, but he says safety precautions are used.
It is not classified as a hazardous material or a hazardous waste.
Mayor Marie Callaghan was impressed with Alcan's dross storage area.
I cannot believe anyone would be silly enough to believe that this is dangerous.
As for the proposed dross recycling plant at Curry, the Environment Protection Authority is in favour.
We are satisfied that in this particular case the processes that are involved and the materials that are involved can be managed on a site such as the Curry site in a manner which would protect both the environment and human health.
Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Britax Brylight is one of Tari's most successful businesses, exporting manufactured car parts all over the world. But it's the staff structure that's grabbed the attention of 9 Turkish officials. They represent government-owned steel and textile industries. Britax Brylight restructured its labour force 4 years ago, and it's to this example that the delegates are looking for future privatisation of their industries. The New South Wales Department of Education and Training has won the lucrative contract to help develop policies in support of the Turkish government's privatisation process.
We actually won it in open competition with the United Kingdom, United States and Germany. So we're very pleased and that we've won this contract in what is very stiff competition.
It's the classic Australian dream to own your own home. For 13-year-old Ben Ashcroft from Stanford Merthyr, that's become a reality probably much sooner than he'd ever dreamed of. How does it feel to be 13 years old and to own a house?
Surprising.
Ben's house in the Silver Ridge estate at Ellamore Vale was first prize in the Newcastle Knights Art Union competition. His winning ticket, one of 4, bought by his parents Barbara and Doug. The 3-bedroom house and land package is worth $200,000. A trust will be established for Ben until he's old enough to decide what he wants to do with his piece of real estate. But for today, it was time to celebrate, with soft drink for some. The Union's second prize, a Hyundai Lantra, was won by Dorothy Geary of Bulwarra Heights, and Barbara Merian is off on a trip to London after taking out third prize. Catherine Lamond, NBN News. It's an all too familiar scene. Dams half empty, soil eroding and withering growth. Hunter Valley vineyards are fast falling victim to the drought.
We've now not had rain for over 6 months, a little bit on Melbourne Cup Day, but it is very serious.
There's over 100 vineyards in the region. More than 60 of them are not irrigated. These properties are feeling the big dry the worst.
The crop will be down. We've had a disappointing bud burst. We've of course got no subsoil moisture, and I would say that even if we did get rain now, we're going to see a cut of some 20%.
The crop damage represents a $30 million loss in retail sales. That's a devastating blow to the local industry, which earns $120 million annually.
We get around about 25 to 28,000 tonnes from the Hunter. We're not going to get it this year. We're on an export boom. We've been producing high quality wines, and it's a bit disappointing.
The situation could turn even bleaker. Solid rain in the next month will enable vignerons to harvest in January the estimated 80% that's currently salvageable. But if the drought continues, up to half the crop could be lost. Catherine Lamond, NBN News. In one short year with the Falcons, Tony Jensen was voted by Newcastle as its most improved player. The National Basketball League rated him second in its most improved ranks. During season 94, the 23-year-old went from being on the bench to in the Falcons' starting 5. Today, the Falcons secured Jensen's services for 1 year with the option of another.
He's an exciting young player, and I think one of the real up-and-coming players in Australia, a player that we're excited about having for next year and beyond.
Tony's looking forward to season 95 with the Falcons.
Obviously next year we're going to be as good. We obviously want to be better, and I'm very excited about it. I had to make sure that Coach Wiseman was going to come back. That was one of the main reasons that I wanted, if I was going to come back to Newcastle, I wanted him to be here.
Wiseman hopes to have the Australian contingent of the team finalised before the free agents list release on November 14th, and the whole squad, including 2 American imports, stitched up by early December. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Having coached Great Britain for 7 years, Mal really arrived at Mascot with his family not having seen last night's test at Old Trafford. Despite the loss, he remains adamant Great Britain can win the deciding match and claim the Ashes. He also has high hopes for the Knights, believing a semi-final berth in the expanded competition next season is a realistic goal.
My ambitions are very much related to hard work and effort. And ensuring that what's been established in the club so far and is progressed and the club goes forward.
To complement the current player base, international Gary Connolly will join the Knights next season. Really also confident Tawara Nikau will be with Newcastle. Although nothing is on paper, the back rower agreed to join the Knights before New Zealand's tour of Papua New Guinea.
I understand Tawara had a very successful series against Papua New Guinea. I rate him very highly. I think he'd be a commendable acquisition for the Knights.
Really will have his first training run with the Knights tomorrow afternoon. Really's arrival was almost overshadowed amid mounting speculation here in Sydney of a breakaway Super League. Backed by Rupert Murdoch, Newcastle is one of 12 teams allegedly involved.
We certainly haven't had any discussions with anyone involved in the Super League, but I think it's fair to say that whatever the premier rugby league competition in the world is, Newcastle should have a side in it. We should be represented, and to that end we're prepared to keep our options open.
Having lost both their games in Friday night's doubleheader against Perth by a run in each game, the Eagles were determined to leave the West with a win. The previous evening's low scoring was replaced in last night's first game with plenty of runs. The Heat once again emerging victorious 12-3, then taking the second game 4-1. In harness racing, Inter-Dominion winner Wiona Warrior was sent out favourite for last night's $30,000 Recar Invitation Mile. But Miracle Mile runner-up Sabre Lies was the one to catch. Local Hope Madawi Prince was an outstanding second with young Mr Charles third. To Speedway and the Newcastle Motordrome celebrated its 19th anniversary with a big bash demolition derby last night, which was eventually won by Sydney's David Ravesi. There was also plenty of drama in the stock cars, while Bob Brewer maintained his lead in the Top Gun Super Sedan series. Not even the gloomy, blustery conditions could dampen the enthusiasm of both teams, many playing on this grand old ground for the first time. One such player was former Newcastle and now Randwick speedster Anthony Stewart, who was playing against his old teammates and has just been selected in the state second 11.
You know, like it's always a great thrill to play on a ground such as this, you know, all the history that's happened here before, so it's my first time, so I'm looking forward to it, yeah.
Another quick, Peter March was proving a handful for his old club, extracting plenty of movement in his opening overs and was justly rewarded with a wicket of opener Justin Quint. Randwick consolidated from there, picking up the run rate to finish with 8 for 223. In reply, Newcastle openers Arms and Christie put on 47 for the first wicket before the country champions capitulated, giving Randwick its second one-day state title.